Hey, how's it going? It's Grant with the Garden of Eater, and in this video I'm gonna go over a little update on the shrimp tragedy that I had a little over a year ago. I'm referring to when I dosed my dogs with flea meds and the hair ended up in the tank. So if you don't know the story, I started the day off, dropped the kids off at school, dropped Shelby off at the airport, and then ran over to the Florida State Fairgrounds to check up on this tank as well as set up another tank. But it was very quick, the scape was already done. I really just had to fill up and just touch up a few things here and there. So I was quickly on my way home. I stopped by Petco, got some flea meds, the Canine Advantix. It's something I've used on my dogs for over 5 years of shrimp keeping, and I've always done it the same way, never had any issues. So I took care of the dogs. I did a couple other things around the house, went and got the kids from school, and when I got home there was a nice package of 72-inch 6-foot Beamworks or Aquachar LED lights for the tanks. Super excited, but they also happen to come in these, almost 7-foot long boxes. And I cut all the lights out, slid the lights out of the boxes, and the boxes were still pretty much intact, and the kids could use them as swords. And I joined in with them, and we were swinging away, having a good time. As long as the kids don't hit the tanks, I'm all for it. And then we ended up putting the boxes down. I went outside and took care of the swimming pool, which is our koi pond. And I'm gonna do a little time-lapse video of that, so you're gonna see exactly what I did that day. And then as soon as I was done with that, I got done with dinner, got cleaned up. I sat down on the recliner, kicked back, turned on the Xbox, started to play around at Call of Duty when I saw my Fancy Tiger, my medium grade tank, not my nicest tank, but still some very nice shrimp in that tank. They were just zinging and zagging all across the tank, going crazy, very lethargic. Some of them were already on their sides, some of them looked like they were dead, and it just wasn't a very good scene. I quickly noticed that the tank next to it, the same thing was going on, and other tanks. Overall, it was like 21 or 22 tanks total in my living room that were affected by this. So this is ground zero. This was the first tank I saw, and it just happened to be the worst hit tank as well. I quickly put two and two together that the flea meds were the cause of the issue. It was just too big of a coincidence for it not to be. I also figured that the reason why this happened, and it's never happened before, was the boxes and me sword fighting with the kids, and this being the worst tank because this is the tank where we leaned up all the boxes. So you can imagine, as I was going from this tank to the next tank to the next tank, and the same thing was going on, my stomach was just sinking in with every single one. Felt like a blow. I felt like I wanted to throw up. I had no clue what to do. I immediately started doing water changes. The water changes weren't really showing any effect, so I was switching to an alternative, and I was asking anybody on my shrimp friends list if they knew what to do. And my buddy Chaz from Elevate Shrimp said, "You got any activated charcoal?" And I didn't, but what I did have is this Aquachar from one of my good friends, Brian. And I quickly ran to the garage, grabbed a handful, and threw it into every single tank. And almost right away, way better than any of the water changes took effect. A lot of the shrimp that were on their sides started to stand up straight. I didn't lose any shrimp in any of my other tanks except for this one and the one next to it. There was just some shrimp that were too far gone by the time I caught it. I was out maybe 6 hours from the time where I had done the flea meds to where I noticed it. So definitely didn't catch it in time to save everybody, but I never added any new stock to this tank. This is the same shrimp that survived. They were able to reproduce and restock this tank. I've also sold, I don't know, probably 200 shrimp out of this tank this year. So within a year, these guys sprung back quite quickly. I do need to cull some of these, the Tai Bs and some of the lower grades, but I really don't bother right now because I am setting up the other rack to move all of these tanks on this entire wall. This was the top tank by my TV. So I just sat down in the same chair where I sat and viewed these guys all frantically zooming around. The worst tank was this tank. I had a couple people ask me why this tank's empty. It's got like a leak just like right above the water level there, so I'm just basically growing the hair grass, and I'm not going to set up a new tank in that spot because all of these racks are going to be torn down, and I'm going to build an entire new rack wall for 10-gallon tanks. So I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to focus on keeping these guys going until the new setup's ready. Another big hit was my pure red lines, and I've not sold nearly as many out of this tank, but still sold some, and these guys have made a big rebound as well. Another hit that really affected me were the green tigers, and those have come back as well this year on a really big way. Sorry, just a little detour. I had to show you these greens. I guess while I'm here, I'll talk about the tank. The reason why this tank doesn't have any Aquachar in it is because this tank had a lid. So none of the hair was able to get into this tank. This was another reason why I was able to narrow it down and figure out what it was so quickly. There are a couple more greens in the moss, or maybe they're on the filter, but that's one of our nicest ones. These are Tang Tai Caridina. So at the time, these guys did not have a lid. These guys were one of the ones that kind of struggled a little bit on coming back and rebounding, but the tank is having no issues reproducing now. This was another one that got hit pretty bad, and it seems like I haven't even made a dent in this tank at all, and I've been selling quite a few over the last month. I had somebody question us where we sell our shrimp and everything like that. I really don't like to use the YouTube channel to advertise or anything like that. I like to try and keep it, you know, informational and stuff like that, but tgoeshrimp.com, that is our website if anybody is interested. And these guys are on the website, I believe, in high and medium grade. But I had a couple people wonder about the pH effect now that it's been running a whole year. I actually didn't even take out any of the charcoal or Aquachar, so it's still got the poison in it, and it's locked in and sealed for life. Or I think the half-life of it's probably gone now, but I never had to take the Aquachar out. The pH of all the tanks are on par with the tanks that I never added Aquachar in. These tanks are a little over a year old, and they average the same pH of the tanks when I set them up. So no changes to any of the pH. These guys were added in after and still have no issues. I've done some serious culling on these. I'm just trying to work on the full reds in here. There was a lot more shrimp in this tank a month ago, and then these guys, I just started another tank for the pandas. I think I have some babies and some berries already going around. So none of the tanks that were affected with the Aquachar have any long-term effects on the substrate or anything like that. So I know in the beginning stages of Aquachar, Brian was wondering if these guys would even be able to breed with the Aquachar in the tanks. I had originally started using Aquachar out in the greenhouse to help with water cloudiness, and within a week or so almost all of my ponds cleared up. I used a lot more Aquachar in the bins, of course, but for water volume there's probably more Aquachar in this tank. So the greenhouse with the Aquachar, the shrimp did great. We were just curious, and I didn't want to risk any of my nicer shrimp throwing the Aquachar in, but when I was in the situation I had no other choice. So I threw it in, I've left it in. At the time, these were my most expensive shrimp. So I really wanted to save these guys. And I mean, the Aquachar did its job. Another use of the Aquachar would be like if you were walking by your tank and you saw something. Like I had my nephew here the other weekend, and it didn't go in a tank, but Shelby's glasses ended up in the RO bin. Now mine had been something else like slime or one of the other toys the kids had that could have gotten something in the tank. I could have just dosed some Aquachar in there to suck it up and maybe got rid of the water or used it for the fish tanks, but it is something to have on hand like that. It could have been in your tank and you can't get rid of all the water, so you got to throw some Aquachar in there. Kids can be like that, so it's good to have this stuff on hand. Another example I have is a buddy of mine went to Disneyland and his mom didn't tell him that he was bombing the house. They bombed the house but didn't bomb his room, and everything was fine. However, the net was in the other side of the house that got bombed, and when he used the net the next day in the tank, everything started flipping out and basically doing the same thing I had, where the shrimp were zinging around and everything like that. And this was before Aquachar, and sadly he lost the entire tank, and it just happened to be these fancy red tigers as well, and that caused him to quit the hobby. So what if he had this on hand? He could have just thrown that in the tank. It would have saved the $400 investment he had spent on the shrimp at the time. And it doesn't have to be pesticides. It could just be simple oils or anything like that that could be affecting your shrimp. Copper or something else. Maybe you dosed the wrong type of fertilizer in your tank and it just happened to have copper. You could throw some Aquachar in there to help absorb some of the copper and make it more viable for your shrimp. And like I said, I didn't take any of it out. It's still in there. It's still going strong. The pH is still going strong. I know this isn't quite a large dose, so I'll go to a different tank real quick. So this is my Tangerine Tiger crossed with Black Tiger Orange Eye project. All the juveniles are F1 of the cross, and then the larger females are Tangerine Tigers, and then I've got my male Black Tiger Orange Eye. This is my all-in-one setup with the sump and filter package that I got from Elevate Shrimp at Chaz. And that is a big old bag of Aquachar, probably a cup and a half, good enough for 60 gallons in this 10-gallon tank. I think it's been running for 8 months now, and the pH is under 6. So it's definitely not affecting pH level at all, and it can also be used as biomedia. All the little tiny crevices inside the Aquachar, it's very porous. It's all going to house beneficial bacteria and help filtrate your system as well. It's a little dirty. All I really have to do is clean that top filter pad. Everything else I don't touch. I haven't even cleaned the mesh, Chaz. I know a lot of people said, oh, that's going to get clogged, but it hasn't even seen a toothbrush yet. So I like how the product was proven in the field in a dire situation, and it came out on top, and I'm really thankful for that. I could have lost all of these colonies. you know, and so it's great to have on hand as like a safe proof. You could throw it in your tanks if you want, just in case something ever happens. It's not going to affect. I see a lot of the shrimp liking to graze on the Aquachar every once in a while as well, so they're definitely eating some of the bioorganisms that have colonized in it. And you know, I've switched from doing the flea meds canine Advantic style over to collars. I now have lids on all of my tanks. We now sword fight outside, but it's good to know that I have this Aquachar in case, you know, something else comes about. So I'd like to thank everyone for the support, for watching. If anybody's wondering what the soil is, it's the Brightwell Cafe. I know somebody asks that every single time I post this on a video, so just get rid of those frequently asked questions. But if there's anything else you guys want to know, I'm always down to help out and talk shrimp. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe for future content.